Hey guys, welcome. I'm Catherine and this is Little Bits of Heaven Homestead. So for those of you who normally follow me for my homesteading activities, hang with me. This week I have got a heavy focus on food. And homesteading is definitely all about food to begin with, but this time you're catching me in the kitchen a lot this week, because if you're catching me here as close to instantaneous as far as when I post it, it's Thanksgiving week. And so I am in my kitchen and knee deep in preparing for family coming to visit. So today I am working on pies. And what I'll be making, I don't know if you guys can see it in the background. Rather than pumpkin pies this year, I am doing blue Hubbard squash pies. And so I'm going to show you the actual pie in another video. This video is all about the crust. And so I figured it would make sense to break it into two different videos, partly because I don't edit. So this is what I'm going to end up with. Beautiful, right? And this is keto friendly. And I'm going to burst your bubble, guys. Even if you're talking keto friendly ingredients, you can overconsume on carbs. So even though I'm going to give you some tips, tricks, and recipes as far as keto cooking, you're going to have to be responsible for your own health and well-being. If you're trying to stay under your 20 carbs or 40 carbs or whatever your max is, you're going to have to track this stuff. So this is your base ingredient, almond flour. Keto is all about no refined grains, no refined carbohydrates. So this is your base, almond flour. I like to shop in bulk in general, so this is how we buy it. So we've got 1.5 cups of almond flour. Rather than using multiple bowls and pots, because I am on a low to no producing well, depending on what time of year is, I'm just going to go ahead and make this directly into my pie pan. So you take your 1.5 cups of almond flour, put it right in there, and then coconut flour. I prefer to stay organic if and when I can. Not a huge stickler on it, but it is something that I try to do if I can. This one, bought at Walmart, organic coconut flour. And this is 3 tablespoons here. Dump it right in there. And then some sort of salt. You cannot really overdo it on sodium as far as the keto diet goes, because it is a diuretic diet. And you want to replace your electrolytes, so salt is always good in any sort of recipe. This one here is quarter of a teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt, and then I've also got a quarter of a teaspoon of baking powder in here. You can also make your own baking powder at home. Now that I bake a lot less, that's what I tend to do, and you can find recipes all over the place, but it's just a mix of cream of tartar and baking soda. And baking soda itself tends to be a lot more shelf stable than baking powder, and that is why, since I am no longer baking traditionally much, I'm not buying baking powder anymore, because it is not necessarily shelf stable. It does degrade as far as its efficacy over time. So just keep that in mind. If you're baking and your products aren't rising, do check the age of your baking powder, because that could definitely be what's contributing to it. So here's what we've got. So you want to mix all of your dry ingredients. You can run it through a sifter if you feel so inclined. I use a fork. I'm not real fancy. And so you just want to break up any of your chunks that you've got here. The almond flour specifically likes to get kind of clumpy. But just make sure all of your ingredients are well incorporated there. So I did post a recipe yesterday for keto-friendly cranberry jelly. And there again, you need to watch your carb count, because this all adds up. So now that I've got my dry ingredients mixed here, I am going to add 1 farm fresh egg. Because it is farm fresh, I'm going to crack it directly into a bowl. I very rarely find developing eggs, but it is always a possibility when you get farm fresh. I did once find a nearly formed chick, and that reinforced the crack it into a bowl theory. And plus, I want to show you guys how beautiful my eggs are. Be jealous, because what? Look at how orange that is. Just gorgeous. Okay, so I'm going to put that directly into my dry ingredients. And then I also have 4 tablespoons of butter melted. And that goes directly in here. And so all you want to do is make sure that this is well incorporated so that it's one consistency. You'll see here in just a second, it'll very much look like dough. And I'm not going to go through the entire process because it takes a little bit of time to get things smooth. I'm kind of OCD, and I like things to be not necessarily perfect because there is no standard of perfection, but I get hung up in the details. And so rather than standing here and having you guys watch me flatten my pie crust for 10 minutes, I will show you what it looks like in the dough consistency, and I will start smoothing it for you, but then I'll just take you back to my finished pie crust and give you the instructions on how to finish this off. So you can see, this doesn't take long. Homemaking anything doesn't necessarily have to be hard. Keto is definitely not any harder than cooking at home. If you were already cooking at home and you're considering a ketogenic lifestyle, don't get stressed. It's not any different than cooking regular food. It is regular food, it's real food. Okay, so we are almost there. And you can see it's kind of crumbling. You guys see that? Okay. And now that I just don't have a bunch of powder floating around in here, all I'll do is take my fingers and smush it. And then I'll sit here for the next several minutes smushing it until it's uniform in thickness, and I'll push it up the sides here, if you guys can see that. And then as it's being, at the very end, as I've got things all uniform in the way that I want it here, and it'll get nice and smooth looking. It won't look chunky anymore once you're getting close to being done. But then at that point you can take a fork and press the edges so that you come up with little, and it's not going to stick right now because it's not smooth yet, but you can come up with different designs on your edges here, totally up to you. So you do want to have your oven preheated to 350 degrees, and you do want to pre-bake your crust. Makes a huge difference. It's like eating pizza on raw dough versus pre-cooked dough. You definitely want to cook your crust beforehand. So, and it doesn't take long to cook. You're only going to pop it in the oven for about 10-15 minutes, and what you're looking for is this golden brown. And then sometimes when you're baking a pie and you've already got your edges pre-browned, you don't want to burn them. They sell this handy dandy silicone ring, and it pops right over the edges. And that way your pie will bake without burning your crust on the outside fluted edges. So that's all I've got for you guys right now. I hope this was of help. Do stay tuned because I am going to film me actually making I'm calling it a pumpkin pie, but it's going to be my squash pie because I'm using my homegrown squash in place of the pumpkin puree. So again, hope this was of help. I appreciate you guys joining me, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so, and feel free to share. Definitely helps me out, and I appreciate you guys, and happy holidays. Bye.